30 Odd Minutes is sponsored in part by Digital Dowsing. Who are you powered by?
For the next 30 minutes, we will explore the unexplained. From mysteries beyond our galaxy to ghostly phenomena in our own backyard. We will dive into our psychic abilities and explore everything from conspiracies to the just plain weird. Welcome to 30 Odd Minutes. If the truth is out there, we will find it. But only by sheer accident.
Hey! Yeah. Welcome to 30 Odd Minutes. It's great to have you here aboard the mothership. We have set down right here in Egypt. Check out behind me the Great Pyramids. There they are. Amazing, amazing, amazing. And we're going to be exploring the history of these things, who built them, why did they build them, and what can we learn about that today. But, of course, I want to say hello to Matt and Andrew in the Control Center. How are you guys?
We're excellent.
Howdy, Jeff.
Very nice. Very red, very black.
That's
Anything
right.
new?
The shirt.
Oh, that's nice.
That's about it.
Matt, and Matt's shirt, too. Starborn Support. We've had them on the show. Thanks for supporting. Very good. You guys enjoy Lizzie Borden this weekend?
Oh, yeah.
That was a blast.
Yeah. It was a very good night.
Excellent, excellent. Anything happen?
Yeah. My group in the dining room had some strange stuff with the EMF meter. Kind of strange. And also the Ovilus got some responses.
Very cool. All right, awesome. Any new stations to say hello to?
Oh, yes, we do. We have hello to the oddballs watching our transmission on ZTV in Akron, Ohio. Your loyalty will be rewarded when we take over the planet, folks. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you, Akron, Ohio. Very good.
Thank you, Akron.
All right. Andrew, of course, wearing a red shirt, which is very risky when you're in the space business. Those guys are usually the first to die. So salute to you, Andrew. Sarah is off tonight. We have her on assignment going through the planet, abducting people, finding experiments to perform on them, etc. Okay, we are talking about the pyramids. And, of course, we threw it to Dr. Drek to see what he could tell us. Please, Dr. Drek.
Greetings, oddballs. Dr. Drek here, and we're talking about wild and wonderful pyramids, which I think are wild and wonderful, and I've always wanted one for myself. And I mean just a little one, like this one that I just bought. I mean a big one. So I've decided to use my new invention. I have this enlarging liquid. I've also made a reducing liquid, you know. So I'm going to put this, my little pyramid, right here. We're going to put some on it right now and see what happens. Watch this. Whoa, whoa. Here, I gotta put my reducing liquid on it now, just to get it back down there. Oh. Whew. Well, at least it's small again. Boy, now I gotta contend with that hole in the ceiling. You know, that's gonna create a big vacuum in here. And vacuum? Oh, James, ship intercom on. Hey, somebody get me out from here. Or throw me a magazine.
Oh, Dr. Drek, thank you very much.
Man.
Putting holes in our ship. Dude, fix that, will you? All right, good stuff. Okay, the Great Pyramids in Egypt are one of the 7 wonders of the world for a reason. They're big, really big. Mathematically speaking, they're beyond precise. And considering they've been around since at least 2560 BC, they're as close to eternal as any man-made thing on your planet. But who built them? Some claim it must have been aliens. Others say brute force and hard work. Tonight's guest says it was an advanced civilization with incredible technology that has since been lost, until now. Our guest has been studying the pyramids for over 20 years. He's the author of the new book, Lost Technologies of the Great Pyramid, and tonight he's here to share how those advanced technologies can benefit us today. Please welcome, beaming to us live from Oregon, Stephen Myers.
Hey, thank you for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
Stephen, great to have you here aboard the mothership. The pyramids intrigue us, infatuate us, these gigantic things. I know you've been there. How does a guy from Oregon get interested in the pyramids?
Well, I've always been interested in technology. I have a technological background that my degree is in a technical field. And I also like history. And if you like both history and technology, then ultimately your interest will be focused on the Great Pyramid, because it's a 45-story skyscraper built in very ancient times and built with extreme precision.
Right. Now, when I was a kid, they told us the pyramid was built by slaves pushing giant blocks on rolling logs, up ramps, and eventually putting together this amazing accomplishment. As you said, the pyramid's 445 stories tall, 5.9 million tons, the tallest building on Earth for 3,800 years,
Yes.
which is incredible, incredible, incredible. But you're saying that's not so. That's not how you believe it was built.
Well, traditional Egyptologists have offered up a hypothesis,
Okay.
Which is what you have described, using strong back muscles and a lot of force to create the Great Pyramid. But it's fascinating that much of what they say has never been demonstrated. The largest stones of the Great Pyramid are 70 tons, and the entire science of Egyptology has never moved a 70-ton payload even 1 inch. So they have a hypothesis, they have a story to tell, but they sure can't back it up using the scientific method.
Okay. Well, you've been there. We've got photos. You've been over there in Egypt. What did you think when you saw these pyramids for the first time? When you walk up to this awesome structure and see it?
Well, I felt the same thing that everybody does. I was in absolute awe of this monumental engineering project that was completed in very ancient times. And just the size of the pyramids, as well as just the size of the components, is just mind-boggling. And the extreme precision of many of the stones that were cut is just beyond the scope of cutting these stones with hammers and chisels. And it's a mystery surrounded by a bunch of misinformation.
Okay. Well, you sent us one other photo, which I think is worth showing here. Maybe it's not so tough. It looks like you're taller than the pyramid. So, building something 5 or 6 feet tall, really not an engineering marvel.
Well, I used some of that juice to make the pyramid smaller.
Very good. Very good. Well done, sir. Way to stay involved. All right. All right. You sent us a bunch of animations. Let's start here at the beginning. Talk us through some of this. Let's start with what are we looking at?
We think that the Great Pyramid was built level by level, and so did Flanders Petrie, an early researcher of the Great Pyramid. And it was built level by level, but it was also built using water and water locks, similar to the Panama Canal or the Erie Canal. Okay. And these water locks were used to lift the stones on barges all the way to the building site.
So this is an example of one of these water locks that we're talking about here.
Right. The stone on barge would move into the water lock, and then it would rise up to the level of the casing stones, which are where it's going to go. The casing stones used to encase the Great Pyramid, and they were built with extreme precision and cemented together watertight. And this shows how in the early stages of construction, the stones on barges were moved right to the building site. So that's how we think massive stones were moved in ancient times, in a similar manner that massive objects are moved in modern times.
Okay, now that's a lot of water to move a distance, although, thousands of years ago the Nile may have been closer, right? I mean,
it was.
You've got photographs here, actually, that don't go back that far.
Certainly, the location of the Nile is in scholarly debate when the Great Pyramid was built. But even Herodotus, the 5th century BC historian, said that the Great Pyramid looked like an island surrounded by water.
Okay.
There was a wall around the Great Pyramid, and we think that wall impounded water. And also, we feel that there was a water source provided by the original builders that might have been in the ancient Lake Maurice. There's a lot to it, but water was provided to the building site on the Giza Plateau.
Okay, so if the water was closer and it's available, building these locks is not an unreasonable thing to assume here. Take us through. Once the stones get up into the site, you've basically got ponds waist deep, right? We've got another animation here.
Yeah, we think that the stones on barges were moved from the Nile River all the way up to the building site. And then the Great Pyramid was built level by level, and then these stones on barges would move up the series of water locks all the way up into the building site. And some of the stones were set inside the pond, filling the pond with stones. And when that pond was filled up, another level of the Great Pyramid was completed. These animations are little clips from a video series that we have available at our website, which is thepump.org.
Okay, right. And so what's amazing to me, though, is this, you're talking serious precision. This has to be watertight. If these locks leak in any way, you're out of business.
Absolutely. It's interesting to note that the stones, the casing stones that still exist at the Great Pyramid are still cemented together watertight.
Okay.
So this theory is consistent with the direct physical evidence.
Now, how long would this have taken? How long would this process of construction taken for something this big?
Well, it's hard to say, but water locks the world over operate 24 hours a day. And you got to remember that Egyptologists haven't even moved one of the largest stones 1 inch yet. So this system is very fast. The Erie Canal, which was built in the 1830s, moved the entire weight of the Great Pyramid in 2 years.
Wow. And yeah, we're looking at the Erie Canal right now in operation, how the locks work. And
yeah, that's the Panama
Canal,
which is a modern wonder of the world. And it moves our largest objects. And we think that water locks were used to move ancient Egyptian objects.
Have you come up with evidence of this at other pyramid sites in Mexico?
Actually, I appreciate that, but our research is specific to the Great Pyramid. It's a massive construction project, and we are trying to understand how it was built.
Okay, and you think there's other evidence of water in the region, like around the Sphinx and things like that?
Oh, certainly. There's water erosion around the Sphinx enclosure as well as on the Sphinx itself. And inside the Great Pyramid, early researchers found what they called Nile earth, which is sediment. Mm-hmm. And the construction of much of it being watertight and airtight, believe it or not, lends credence to this type of research, this direction of research.
Now, you sent us an image of the cross-section of the pyramids, and we know there are chambers inside, and there are various shafts. Let's take a quick look there. Yeah,
the Great Pyramid has many chambers and passages, kind of a complex network. And what we think that the purpose of the Great Pyramid was that it was infrastructure for the civilization that built it, and in fact that it was built to be a massive water pump instead of a tomb.
Interesting. Now, would those chambers and have been there during the construction, or would they been drilled after? I mean, it seems to me you've got a hole.
No. Those chambers were built as the Great Pyramid was built, and they were built level by level. So when we're at the level of the King's Chamber, then that chamber is built level by level, or the Grand Gallery, or even the vents that go up through the Great Pyramid. So it was all built level by level as planned.
And the point was to get water from low to high, which helps fill those locks? Is that the...
Yes, that is correct. The first part of the construction, they created a pit, an excavation 100 feet below the surface of the Great Pyramid in solid bedrock, and that acted like a pump to pump water to supply water for the construction process. And ultimately, the whole thing is a giant water pump, similar to the Grand Coulee Dam in central Washington. It is a massive water pump, and we think that ancient mankind was able to pump water in a not the same way, but they were able to pump water to create prosperity, just as modern mankind pumps water to create prosperity.
Very good. Matt, in our control center, what say you?
I say he's actually onto something. Number one, I know that the Nile was a lot closer to the pyramids and the Sphinx than it currently is now, because we have a series of dams that have gone up the Nile and all the way up to Lake Victoria, which is what feeds the Nile. It also used to have a lot more rain back then, so the area would tend to flood. Now on the Giza Plateau, the way they made the platform so level is they cut out the square that they wanted, They filled it with water, and they sent masons in to level off the tops of the stones. When the water rested level across it, it was like they use it as a leveling and measuring device, because water naturally forms a level.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And that's how they cut the granite stone basin to start with. And then they filled it up with water and, like you said, floated the stones in it. I don't see why they couldn't have continued that same process in a step fashion up the sides of the pyramid.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah,
not a problem.
The whole theory is quite involved, and I've actually written 2 books about the Great Pyramid. One is called The Great Pyramid.
Lost Technologies.
This one is Lost Technologies of the Great Pyramid.
Right.
And my second book, which came out last year, is The Great Pyramid Prosperity Machine. We think that the Great Pyramid was a unique and efficient water pump, and our nonprofit foundation is trying to redevelop that ancient technology for our modern but troubled world.
And the idea here is that there's no mechanics, right? This is all just physics and ingenuity, or are we talking some metaphysical magic?
It's sort of similar to a hydraulic ram water pump. There's passages, chambers, and check valves that ultimately was used to pump water, and this efficient system would be an alternative to using hydroelectricity, which has some adverse environmental impacts, as well as using fossil fuels as an energy source.
Very interesting. Stephen Myers, we have to take a quick break for our news. When we come back, we're going to hear more about this right after the news.
Thank you.
More interesting UFO news from the UK this week. Despite the fact that the Ministry of Defence has stopped looking into reports of unidentified flying objects, the British Civil Aviation Authority admits that they still do. The Aviation Authority says that any encounter reported by pilots and ground control personnel are taken very seriously because these objects pose a threat to aviation safety. The head of the UK's National Air Traffic Control Services, Richard Deacon, said in an interview with BBC Radio that there is typically 1 UFO report made every month. Many pilots and air crews have reported encounters with unidentified aircraft over the years. One noteworthy encounter, reported by British pilots, took place over the Mojave Desert in 1989. David Hastings and his co-pilot, David Patterson, were flying a Cessna Skymaster when they both saw an object straight out in front of them on the distant horizon. The object came at them rapidly and passed over their plane without making a sound or causing any air turbulence. All they saw was a dark shadow. Despite not being able to see anything, both men felt that there was something off their port side. David Patterson took some photographs and later found something was in fact in the air with them. We at 30 Odd Minutes would like it known that the mothership was still on the drawing board when this incident took place. It wasn't us, folks. In other news, a man in Montana thought it would be a good idea to dress up like Bigfoot to see if anyone would call local authorities and report seeing the famous cryptid. On the night of August 26, 2012, the 44-year-old man dressed himself up in a shaggy camouflage outfit known as a ghillie suit to make himself unrecognizable to anyone who might see him walking along Route 93 near the town of Kalispell. Two teenage girls did see him, unfortunately not before running him over with their cars. State police think that alcohol may have been the inspiration for this sad prank gone horribly wrong. Faking evidence of the paranormal will get you nowhere. I'm Andrew Lake, and oddly enough, that's the news.
Thank you, Andrew. Very good. All right, we're back with Stephen Myers, author of the book Lost Technologies of the Great Pyramid. Stephen, so we're talking about something that could be used today to kind of revolutionize our environmental problems. What's your foundation doing? You're raising money? What's the next step?
Well, we've done a lot of things. We've produced a video series that is free to watch from our website. Mm-hmm. We've conducted a tremendous amount of information that has been compiled in my 2 books. We did our research expedition several years ago back to Egypt, and we have a lot of things in the works. We are going to do another video series about how the Great Pyramid operated as a water pump. We are planning another trip to Egypt. We're struggling with funding on that, of course. And we're also doing a number of other things that's listed on our website at thepump.org.
Right.
And as a 501c3 nonprofit foundation, all donations are tax deductible.
Very good. Well, if there's any money left after we go for beer and wings after the show, we'll be happy to send it your way. So let's keep going through this process, though. As the levels are getting higher up here, you've got, this is actually an earlier step, but so what are we looking at now? This is...
Well, there were two large ships found at the base of the Great Pyramid. They're called sun barges. Egyptologists have a story to tell. They say that these sun barges were used to move the pharaoh's carcass. Why they needed two of them for one pyramid is hard to say, but we think that they were used like cranes, like floating cranes, and people walking on them make the cranes pivot, and they can quickly move a stone off of a barge. And then when the barge is moved out of the way, and then the floating crane is moved to the correct position, the people move to the front, and one of the stones is moved right into the pond. So that's how this process is very quick. Using water and the buoyancy of water has a lot of advantages in terms of stone manipulation, movement, and setting and placing stones in place with extreme accuracy. And all of those processes are described in my book, Lost Technologies of the Great Pyramid.
Let's keep going through these video clips because I want to get to the top, and then we're going to pick it apart a little bit. So the next one up, we're moving the casing stones to their final locations, and this is the capstone, right?
This is the capstone, the very last stone, and it moves up the series of water locks just like the other stones. Going up step by step, and the process allows this and all the other stones to move very quickly to their final location. Anyway, ultimately, that capstone will go up those series of water locks as depicted in this little clip, and then clear up to the pond at the towards the top of the Great Pyramid.
All right, and let's take a look at that last one, because at this point, you've basically got almost like the pyramid encased in a fish tank here, right? I mean,
yes, there's an enclosure that encloses the very top sections of the Great Pyramid, and we're watching the capstone being set in place. And it was heavy, probably several tons, but using water and barges, you can move it with ease and without any handling scars. And this is just a depiction showing how this was done. Water is used, again, to float these barges, and then water is allowed to enter these barges, which lowers the stone to its final resting place. So it's a fascinating process. It gives glory to the ancient geniuses who built the Great Pyramid, and it gives a functional purpose for the Great Pyramid, but also this ancient technology has a potential to help us in our modern world.
Now, what's so interesting to me is that this all seems plausible. We were talking about this before we started tonight. That this all seems logical to make sense. It's great ingenuity, human ingenuity. But why does it disappear, or does it? Do we see it again? Further in time, somewhere else in Egypt?
Well, again, we're specific to this construction project,
right.
But probably whoever built the Great Pyramid, that civilization fell into chaos. And high technology is one of the first things that's lost when a civilization ends. And there were, what can you say? There was probably a period of like the Dark Ages after why ever this civilization fell, and a lot of this information was lost. But we still have the Great Pyramid as direct physical evidence to research and understand and come up with an explanation as to why it was built and also how it was built.
So we all know it was built. It's still there. I mean, and it's like we said, how incredible. Thousands of years, it's still there. So once it was completed, how would this have operated? How are you saying this would have operated to generate water for irrigation, things like that, or how would it have worked?
Yes, we think the water entered the descending passage, and then it also exited out the King's Chamber vents. And we think that there were additional passages that went down in the casing stones, but those casing stones are missing. And the water was used, of course, for irrigation, but also for scientific experimentation, to run heavy machinery, to create compressed air. And also compressed air is used to create static electricity and a whole host of things. I see the Giza Plateau as an industrial park and a science center more so than a graveyard.
All right. Well, you've got our science officer, Matt, very excited. Matt, what are you thinking?
Well, I know that if his theory is valid or true, at some point, if they're able to start separating some of the stones or in the process of doing work, I know as a chemist that when the water is put together and under compression and then eventually evaporates, there are various salts that are left. So if your theory is correct, there should be a detectable salt layers in between the stones. If they're doing work on them and move them, that should yield, evidence of your theory being correct or incorrect.
And of course, one of the issues going on right now, Andrew, we were talking about this before, with the political uprisings in Egypt. These pyramids might be threatened, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Just for on a note, the Queen's Chamber and also the lower part of the Grand Gallery were famous for having an incrustation of salt on them, which was probably from the water deposit. So just word search Queen's Chamber and salts, and you'll find a whole host of information that will fascinate you about that very specific issue.
Right. Not Anderson Cooper and salts. That would be another one. Anyway, sorry, too soon. So, with the political uprisings, we've got these incredible monuments that have stood the test of millennia are threatened. There's talk of dismantling them because it offends some religious sensibilities. There could be no greater tragedy, I think, for anyone. But in our final minute here, Stephen, talk to us about how important are the pyramids to us today? I mean, what can they still teach us after all these years?
Well, they are a legacy of the past. People that were just like us, who had a vision and courage and the capacity to complete such a monstrous project, were able to create these things. And they are more than just tombs. In fact, the Great Pyramid was never a tomb, but it was a monument to the ingenuity of these ancient people that understood a level of physics that is probably beyond our understanding. They built this structure to improve their own lives and the lives of their children, and we think that this ancient technology, again, can help us in our very troubled world.
Very good. Stephen Myers, the website is called thepump.org. We'll have links from our site to yours, of course, and also to your books. Very interesting stuff, intriguing theories. This thing is an enigma that calls to us, and it is called to generation after generation. And dear God, we hope we don't lose it to any political silliness or anything like that, because it's still a mystery that deserves to be pondered. Very great stuff. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight. We appreciate it. It was great having you.
Well, thank you, Jeff. This has been a lot of fun and a great honor.
All right. Well, thank you, Stephen. All right, folks. The pyramids, great mysteries. It's what we're all about here, always exploring it. Until next time, stay odd. Yeah.
Yeah.